Joining me now to discuss is Amber Athey, Washington editor at The Spectator. Amber, great to see you. Great to see you in person.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you.
All right, we have a lot to get to, but first I want to talk to you about that statement by President Biden, basically saying that he would like to codify Roe versus Wade. Your thought on that and our second Catholic president?
Well, it's clearly just rhetoric because Joe Biden's agenda across the board domestically is already dead in Congress. The idea that he would even be able to do this is so unrealistic. He could barely get the infrastructure bill passed with a bipartisan Congress, and he wasn't able to get his massive spending bill passed as well, or his voting rights legislation. So the idea that he would even be able to do this obviously is not going to happen. But it's really stunning to see that the White House repeatedly tells us how Joe Biden is a devout Catholic, and they always flaunt the fact that he's going to Mass every Sunday. But he is against church teaching on such a huge issue, the issue of life. And so it does feel like a slap in the face to Catholics that their first Catholic president in so many years would take this stance on Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, and to your point, something else, there's a group, and I know that you've heard about this, making so much, so much headway, I should say, to speak, but gaining attention on social media, this group called Catholics for Choice, and what they did in the Basilica, kind of projecting those images. Talk to us about that, what your thoughts were when you saw that.
Well, it was so inflammatory. It was obviously meant to enrage Catholics, not to actually change minds. And unfortunately, many members of this group, well, I would argue that all of them are not Catholics, but some of them are not even, they don't even identify as Catholic. So, for example, their press secretary is a transgender Protestant. So the idea that they speak for some silent majority of Catholics is just ridiculous. And then to go and try to essentially desecrate one of our, most sacred buildings in the D.C. area to try to get their message across is really just sad, and I think speaks to their tactics and how they don't really align with even not just the teaching of the church, but also the way that we are supposed to conduct ourselves when engaging politically.
Absolutely, and especially on the eve of March for Life. So very disturbing. A lot happening over the weekend. Also another rally that was held in D.C. This one was against the COVID-19 mandates. There was a large crowd there. Also, other cities around the world also held similar protests. I want to get your thoughts on that and kind of what this is signaling.
I think this is a signal that there are so many rational people out there who might be pro-vaccine, but recognize that for many people, the vaccines are not a necessity. We know at this point, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky has confirmed it, that the vaccines don't stop you from catching the virus. They don't stop you from spreading the virus. The main benefit of getting a vaccine is to lower your risk of hospitalization and death. And if you're a young person, if you're a child, if you're someone without comorbidities, that should be a personal decision for you on whether or not you think that the risks of getting the vaccine are worth slightly reducing your chance of hospitalization, which is already very low to begin with. And so a lot of people are saying, what is the purpose of a mandate when this vaccine does not stop the spread? That would be the whole point for any other vaccine that people are required to get, is that it stops you from spreading it to other people, and that is not the case here. And people are pointing out the illogic of these mandates.
Yeah, another thing I want to get to is President Biden. A new poll came out today by Rasmussen. It found that only 28% of Americans think that the nation is headed in the right direction. I want to get your analysis and thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's really no surprise when in just a year of his first term in office, we've seen gas prices skyrocket. We've seen supply chain issues. We've seen the push to teach our children critical race theory, mask mandates in schools. He claimed that he was going to reopen schools, and schools are still shut down in many parts of the country. And then you have his law enforcement arm, the DOJ, going after parents for speaking out at school board meetings, likening them to domestic terrorists, and now promising to continue to go after so-called anti-authority government threats at home. So across the board, Biden's first year has been a disaster. The people are aware of it, and whatever messaging is coming out from Jen Psaki to calm down and have a margarita and go to your kickboxing class is a further insult to people who know exactly what's going on and are worried that their families are going to be suffering the consequences of just a disastrous policy across the board that has led to economic, national security, and many other negative implications for families.
Amber, not a whole lot of time left. Before I let you go, what else are you working on, and what do you have your eye on?
Right. So over the next week, we're going to be looking at the possibility, unfortunately, of another foreign entanglement with what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And Joe Biden suggested during a press conference last week that if Russia did something that was only a slight intrusion on Ukraine, then he wouldn't respond. And that was opening the door for Russia to go ahead and call his bluff. And so we're definitely keeping an eye on what the implications are going to be there with our foreign policy and whether or not Americans are going to have to rebound from just getting troops drawn from Afghanistan and then turning around and getting involved in another foreign conflict. And I think the appetite for that is very low among the American people.
Well, Amber, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your time and your analysis as always.
Thanks. It was good to be here.